I know we got a very busy agenda. Paul Horniman, the Chair of the Public Safety Committee. This is our regular meeting scheduled for noon on Wednesday, February 9th, 2011. Apparently we're on record, so now for so I guess we'll go around the room first. We have several assembly members present. The actual entire Public Safety Committee is present, so we'll start here at this corner.
Mike Gutierrez, Assembly.
Paul Horniman, Chair, Assembly.
Chris Birch, Assembly.
Chair of the Public Safety Committee. And first, we're going to be addressing liquor license additional protests at Rum Runners. And so, representing Rum Runners, if you want to go ahead and identify yourself.
Sure. I'm Dan Coffey.
I'm Mike Schomer.
Ellie Schomer.
Vasily Gallo.
Okay, so you guys know why we're here. We're at the conditional protest on a liquor license renewal for a biannual renew. And there was some review over largely Title IV issues, but as the Assembly's action, as you know, is conditional use and land use on the regulatory side. And there is what was concerned potentially a pattern of conduct in the downtown bar areas, including this licensee. There were several incidents over the past summer. I know the police were proactively working several issues. I know myself, I rode along with community patrols and on at least 2 occasions with members of the APD patrol looking at several issues. And of course, this was one area that was of concern. So the Public Safety Committee did a conditional protest to address some of these issues and concerns and see if there's any resolve. So we may or may not consider a conditional use for this land use portion. And Mr. Coffey called me earlier in the week and said he's now representing this license. So, Mr. Coffey, if you'd like to present, I know you brought some material.
Sure, and I handed out some materials that for the committee. Basically, a narrative. I copied the 2 sections of the law that deal with protests of renewals of liquor licenses. As I noted in my little memo, Mr. Teshi and I, when we were both on the Assembly and both in this world, he and I worked out a process whereby involving the chief and the Public Safety Committee and the Assembly that would, I think the word is systematize and regularize to some degree the way in which protests were handled. Because before it was pretty ad hoc, and those of us who saw it it wasn't well handled. And there's a system now that is far better. But basically the standards are still the same. And for a protest to the ABC board concerning renewal, the law requires a pattern of practices, which goes beyond just an incident here or an incident there. What I did in the 3rd page of this little memo to you guys was talked about there were 4 NOVs issued between 2008 and the end of 2010. So it's about 2 years and 8 months. There were 4 NOVs. One of them was dismissed by the ABC board because the factual basis wasn't there for it. Another one involved a minor who was on premise who ordered a beer from a bartender, and a bartender opened the beer. According to the bartender, he didn't give it to him, was checking IDs, very busy. He came back, asked the kid for an ID. The kid didn't have an ID. He either took the beer back or never handed it across the bar to him. Anyway, an NOV was issued and so on. A third one was after the one that was dismissed, the third one was the most recent, and that involved allegations of drunken persons on premises. And basically, there was an NOV saying that portable breath tests were given to 3 people on premises, and they reported what the blood alcohol was. And I give you I talk about the standards for the drunken person test. And of course, servers are not given portable breath analysis devices, which are, I think, officers or the former officers in town know that they are relatively unreliable because they're not calibrated like a regular deal. But be that as it may, the whole thing is key to observations of behavior. And the standard for the state and the city is pretty much the same thing, and it's a substantial loss of control of physical or mental facilities or faculties, and the other one is physical or mental conduct is substantially impaired. It's obviously not the driving standard, rightly so. It's a far lower standard. That's a .08, and these guys, if they were in fact over .2 in the bar, they were clearly impaired. For driving purposes, the question is, did they demonstrate? That's a subjective standard and one that needs, my sense of it is that you really want to be cognizant of it as a server and an establishment operator. You have to be cognizant of that, because you're going to put, obviously when your bar closes, you're going to put them out on they're going to go out on the road and so on, and you want to be able to make judgments about car keys and taxi cabs and so on. So it's important to watch. If you had one situation where you've got over the course of 2 years, where you've got drunken persons on premise, is that a pattern of practices? I mean, that's for you guys to decide. We would obviously argue no. I also included in the memo the law that we have, and finally, there were responses to each one of the NOVs that were issued, including the letter from the ABC board where the executive director dismissed that. And then finally, the reason we've got everyone here is because this is important for a whole variety of reasons: public safety, public health, business opportunities, and everything associated with the operation of a licensed premises. My view, and I argue to you and present to you, that they have a good record. They don't have a great record. New owners, new operators in 2 years. They've certainly gotten better, and I've listed the things they have done. There's a half a dozen things they have done. Security at the level of 16 people in the place, 2, 3, and 4 people on the door, video cameras, on and on. Reported to you about the compliance checks as well. 6 out of 8, they passed, 2 of them are failed, and they're in the NOVs. I'm not sure that's a complete record, but nonetheless, it's a substantial indication of that. How do you get better? You get better because you learn how to do things better and you are innovative. I mentioned the ID machine. It costs about $7,000 to install one of these just for yourself. More if you do the communications. They're talking to Mike. Who are you talking to about that?
Platinum Jacks, Anchor, and Joku Charlie's. And what this machine would do is you would scan every ID, of course, but what it would do is if this person had a gun or a fight in an establishment, we would basically 86 them out of all of our establishments to make downtown safer is our primary goal. If they're underage, we all know it's a fake ID, but basically you can put notations about that, and when it scans, it will pull it back up. So as long as the system is properly having an employee to put in the stuff that happened that night, it's really a good, safe system to use for especially downtown locations and bars. You've got a lot of, every 21-year-old seems like they're packing a gun these days. We metal detect at the front door. They all leave the guns in their cars. So it lets you know what problem people you have, not to let them in your establishment. And me and the Anchor and Platinum Jacks have been talking about this, about doing this between us. And then I definitely need to talk to Joku Charlie's as well. I think we still all have the same problems. We all have a different clientele we don't want in our establishment. We don't want the gangsters. We don't want the drug dealers. And this will help us communicate as a team between each other which ones we don't want to let in our bar to keep downtown safer.
And show them the 86 book, as you call it, because this is a good thing, but it's not a great thing, because every time if somebody comes to the door, you got to go leafing through it and see if he's on the list. So the computer system would be a far better. It's a relatively expensive thing, but it's something that, so sitting here with me, that's a relatively expensive thing as well. So
we've been also working with APD. We had a HR meeting. Yeah, we have a HR meeting. Mr. Holman was there about. Since our last one in August, we have been arresting. We never arrested minors before. We took their fake ID, whoever's it was, told them don't ever come back until you're 21. That doesn't work. So what we did is we've been having 5 to 8 arrests per weekend. We call APD on every incident. We arrest a minor. We're charging them fully and prosecuting them fully. That is to let them know, they're texting all their friends, don't try to go on run runners, you'll get arrested, you'll go to jail. So we've definitely changed our impression to these minors that you don't want to come in our club. We will prosecute you fully to the law. You will be arrested on site. So that has definitely helped out with the minors trying to get in our establishment. A lot of them are scared to even try now. So that's really turned things around since we had that meeting and with APD, and we've also helped APD on every gangster they're looking for, any shooters. We caught the shooter that was out there that just got convicted. The security helped chase him down. We've helped APD in numerous occasions with different assaults and problems, and we definitely continue to work with APD in any way we can to make their job easier and to make our place safer. We've also expanded our club. A lot of problems in the club was 400 people can't move. It's so packed, it takes you 10 minutes to get to our back room. We've now got a new vault nightclub, very classy downstairs. It's marble floors, very classy. So it allows for our capacities increased to 499 on the first floor and 209 on the second floor. But now with 400 people going to 350 on the first floor, 150 people down in the basement, it makes it a lot safer to walk through and a lot less problems because you don't have that such packed feeling that you can't walk through and move. So we've done a lot of things to increase the safety at Rum Runners, and we will continue to work with APD and whatever means necessary to get the ID machine. And we take it very, very seriously. I've had meetings with our bartenders about over-serving, looking for red eyes, staggered speech, walking, impaired walking. We've had a meeting every single week about it, Friday and Saturday nights, safety meetings about it since then as well. So we're making every step that we can to prevent any future violations, and also for the safety of the public and Rum Runners as well.
I know Mr. Gutierrez had a question, and I have a follow-up to what you just said. Finish, actually.
A couple of comments. First, I want to say thank you for coming here. I appreciate that you're here. I had mentioned several times that I would love owning an establishment like Rum Runners. It sounds like a fun thing to me. My wife shakes her head and says, no, that's way too much responsibility. So I respect the responsibility that you bear, and it's staggering. And I don't think everybody understands that. So I respect what you're doing, because I know it's not the easiest thing to do in the world. The electronic ID scan is a fabulous idea. I really applaud that. People who go out, they want to know they're going to be safe. So that's a selling point for you. And I know it's not expensive, or not inexpensive, and not easy, but it's a great thing. And if you all cooperate on it, that's something you all should stick your chests out about. Am I understand? And Mr. Coffey, you made the comment. You have only recently owned the establishment?
Well, Basilio Gallo and myself and Abraham Gallo are our partners in the establishment. We bought it back in 2008 in April. We opened in June. We had almost 2 years of no violations. Then we had the hot dog stands downtown where everybody would get out 3 to 5 in the morning. You'd have 40 in each line. You'd have all the wrong groups of people meeting drunk and everything. There was actually shooting back in August of 2009 in the park, and the Egan Center got hit, my building got hit. Since that day, we've actually metal detected all of our guests. So there's no knives in our club, there's no guns in our club, there's no metal pipes in our club, there's no any drug dealers. We don't want to get shot, but we know who they are. We'll have 5 security standing right behind them. There's no drug dealing in our place. They leave because they feel uncomfortable. We've took every step we can to make sure our place is safe. In fact, when the shooting happened, when the 19-year-old left the Club Millennium, came up, knew he couldn't get our club, was like in front of the Russian shop and shot shots down towards the avenue. I'm out there going, hey, go back into Rum Runners, at least we're safe in there, there's no guns, because we metal detect.
Right.
But we take it very seriously, and I've took every single step I can to ensure that I work with APD, that we get better, and we had a really, really good record. And for the record, all these got dismissed out of court, just not dismissed off the ABC board, except for Melissa Berkshaw's, which just got convicted of over-serving. It is a problem when a Platinum Jack's attorney is supposed to be representing myself, backs out, and she doesn't have any legal representation and was out of state. So there is some conflict of interest there with another nightclub owner possibly not having our best interests. I have nothing against Platinum Jack's, but I don't think Platinum Jack's owner is the best person to represent us.
Well, the reason I asked the question about the length of time is Mr. Coffey, you mentioned establishing a pattern of behavior, a pattern of violations. One of the problems with, I think, the process that we have at the assembly is we don't always get to see that. We get to see the notice of violations in the last licensing period. So if there were 3 violations in this licensing period, and there were 3 violations in the last one, and there were 3 violations in the 2-year period before that, and the one before that, that's a pattern of behavior, but we don't always get to see that. But you're not responsible for anything that happened before you were part owner of the club. That's why I ask.
I think 4 is the total,
Yeah.
sir,
So
with 1 dismissed.
yeah. So that's obviously we're not going to think about trying to hold you responsible for violations that happened before your time. It's more commentary from my perspective on this process. And this process, it might be better than what was in place before, but it's got some pretty gaping holes. As we tried to take just a cursory look at a few of the ones who had violations, the whole process ground to a halt. And because we threw a giant wrench into the works and we didn't mean to. So Mr. Holman has taken the lead on working on that process and trying to fix what is not working with it so that we can more expeditiously take a quick look, what's going on, decide how to deal with it, and move forward. The vast majority of the ones that came before us had no violations, but they got, not exactly held up, but that process came to a halt. It took us about another 45 minutes at the assembly meeting than it should have, and we got through it. But it's just the process needs a little bit of work. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Burton?
I just very much appreciate the background information provided. I've had an opportunity to go through here and appreciate the steps that you're taking to, for those of us that do have young kids that are of that, the 25 to 35 range. I think it's a really good effort. I was interested about the cost of the I've got a iPad, and they must make an app for that, don't they, for the scanning stuff?
They have to,
Yeah.
required by law.
I think it's like $780 if you just get your own machine, but our idea is to have a machine that we can put notations in about the folks and actually make downtown a safer place for everybody.
Yeah.
So if this person
Yeah.
makes a problem in one establishment, he's not allowed to go in any of the establishments downtown. And it just makes it a safer, these days, when I grew up, nobody carried a gun, it wasn't like these days. Now all these young kids are all packing and you got gangster colors. I don't know anything about gangs, but one's got a red shoelace, one's got a blue shoelace, and so you really got to watch at the front door. You're not only checking to see if it's a fake ID, you're also looking at their shoelaces, you're also looking at what ethnic they are and what crowd they're coming in with, and there's so much to making sure the safety of your club, and so we take it very, very seriously. But I am definitely going to get an ID machine for ourselves. At least every ID will be scanned.
You
But
mentioned
I'm
the
working-
texting, and
Yeah.
I just finished reading a book called Socialnomics, and it's all about the advent of social media and the communication. I really like the idea of the connectedness between the different establishments in town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Speak up.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I apologize for being late. And secondly, I'd like to thank you for being here at this Public Safety Committee meeting, because this is the avenue to make things simpler when you're before the assembly as a whole. And it sounds like you're doing a lot to make your establishment a place where people go and enjoy themselves and also feel safe at the same time. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm curious about the ID check machine. It sounds like you're going to be working on other establishments downtown to also
We're working on the
buy into
big
this
ones,
system so that
yes.
you can collaborate? Because
Yes.
it wouldn't make a lot of sense if 6 of the 8 establishments had these machines and all the people who got
We're
rejected.
looking at the busiest, we have
Ended up the other
1,900
two.
people that go through our establishment at night. I mean, we have I know that 6 out of 8 isn't the best record. We're working on getting 100% compliance. But out of the 1,900 people, every other weekend, we have lots of officers come in, checking our TAM book, we're legit, checking to make sure. And so we get a lot of checks, a lot more than most places. But the Anchor's a very busy place. Platinum is, Chilkoot Charlie's is, and Rum Runners. We're probably the 4 busiest nightclubs in Anchorage. And so the machine's very expensive. So I've talked to some other nightclubs that aren't as busy as we are, and they don't really have much interest. We have so much interest because a lot of the same people that cause problems going to our establishment as they do Platinum and Anchor and Chilkoot Charlie's. I think we've got it if we all 4 purchase this machine from a $7,000 cost down to a $5,000 cost if we do 4 or more machines. And it also scanning IDs. If APD has any problems with anybody, they can come in as well. We can look up that name, see if they've been in our establishment. We can help out APD in any type of, if they're looking for a fugitive. It's really a good machine, good process for the whole community.
Okay, quick follow-up from me. You said earlier you do training weekly on Fridays and Saturdays in particular.
Yes, sir.
Who's that, what staff is getting that training?
I lead that training, sir. I'm the general manager of the establishment.
Who's that,
But-
the whole staff?
It's all security, bartenders, everyone
Yeah.
that works. those
All
evening
security and
shifts.
bartenders and servers are required to be in this meeting, and this is more about over-serving. This is about if we have a fire alarm, we have a new, we're going for a different occupancy levels and stuff, and so the fire department has asked us to do these fire evacuation meetings every Friday and Saturday night. We've logged it every Friday and Saturday night. It's about 600 people. Hey, if you have a fire in the vault downstairs, how are we going to get everybody out safety? Where's the pool extinguishers at? Where's your fire extinguishers at? Who is going to be running the show? Manager does what? What job does the bartenders do? So our crew's never done that before, and now we're really tightening up as a group. So if something actually does happen, like an earthquake or a fire or something at Rum Runners, we are prepared to handle that situation, and that's why we're doing that. And
Mention that.
yeah, and the building's now sprinklered, so it's a lot safer as well. We've got $700,000 we're spending in the building, and it just makes it safer, and it makes it, APDs came down and asked, hey, can we take pictures of your vault area? I'm like, no problem, sir. Take them down there. They want to know how to handle a situation if it happens down in the new establishment. We worked very well with APD and anything they need. I walk them through all the time. They come in on Friday, Saturday nights. So the meetings are safety oriented to make sure that we are ready for any situation, especially fire, earthquake type things is the main reason, but also public drunkenness, over serving, red eyes, and we go through that as well on Friday and Saturday nights. Normally I do once a month meetings on Fridays with the bartenders and security staff, but right now it's a requirement with the fire department that we do a Friday and Saturday meeting. Everybody knows where the pole stations are, and this is because we're sprinkling. We've got the main floor sprinkled, we have the upstairs to go, and we're changing all of our occupancy levels of our building.
Chief, I don't want to speak for Captain Dave Cook, but I did have a conversation with him yesterday and again today, reference Rum Runners. Is there anything that you've had conversation with? I don't want to speak on behalf of Captain Cook.
I haven't spoken about the downtown bar situation in some time with my folks. I've heard from Dave that the general conversation with the establishments downtown and with Char's is better than it was after we did our detail down there this last summer. But I don't have specifics to report. If Dave talked to you, you probably do have specifics from Dave, so.
Yeah, just not to speak on hearsay, but talking to Captain Cook just this morning, in fact, he was doing some research, and he did say much improved so far in 2011. Mind you, we're in the middle of second month of the year, but even in 2010, from the early summer until towards the end of the year, he noted some improvements in both the communication and approach to working collaboratively and trying to resolve some issues. So, I just need to make sure that everybody's very clear on this. We're coming at this from the land use, as you know, Mr. Coffey, perhaps if necessary, conditional use, as Mr. Coffey alluded to earlier. Some of the downtown package stores have conditions on things, types of liquor they can't sell, and size quantities and things of that nature. If things of that nature need to be in place to protect and better serve the public safety and interests of public safety, those are things that we need to consider on those in that side of the code. We're not the state books in here in Title IV, all that's regulated. We do have under municipal code chapter 2, obviously there's issues on dealing with liquor license renewal. The concern that we saw from the overall picture of things, more than just Title IV, there's Title 11 violations, possibly people shooting people or shooting at people, or things that we know that are happening in the downtown area, and yes, at or near or in front of or nearby the Rum Runners. So it's very soothing to me to understand and realize that the efforts that you've gone to, including financial, to take serious, the issues of public safety. I'm very glad to hear you're hearing an all-staff security briefing. You're talking about, evacuation plans in case. Gosh, you can look around the country and see where a nightclub has some sort of an incident and a fire starts it. Even if it's like a stage show, like you see at say Chilkoots. I don't know if you bring live acts or anything in, but they set off some pyrotechnics that set off some curtains on fire, and the next thing you know, 30 or 40 people are dead in Connecticut, I think it was. And so, very, very important to look at the entire overall safety as perspective. And I'm glad to hear you've taken it more than just Rum Runners. You're talking about the entire downtown, because frankly, I'm hearing, or had been hearing this past summer into the winter, from several people that are much younger than me that actually go out in the middle of the night on the weekends saying that they weren't going to go back down to downtown, and particularly even in your establishment, because they felt that it was out of control, it wasn't being properly managed, and there was some over-serving, and then there were the violations. So from the holistic look at public safety, which is where we're here for, is to review these licenses that come through. And that's why the conditional protest, frankly, because we needed to hear what steps are being taken to try to resolve these issues before it gets to the level of taking out the hammer and saying, hey, now, we've got a serious concern here. You have a very large vested interest, obviously, financially in your business. We have a very much larger picture interest in making sure our public in the community is safe. And so, where do we balance this? What approach do we take? And I think we're taking the reasoned approach. And I think it's been talked about enough already that, as far as processes go, I think we need to refine from the assembly level so that it's not at the end of the year at renewal time that you hear from assembly members possibly filling up a conditional protest, that we would have already resolved, perhaps had meetings such as this to resolve any concerns that might have borne and bared its head, throughout the course of the year. So, to the fact that you're to the point that you're actually working with the police and public safety to make it a better process for everybody, to make it a safer part of the community where you operate business and larger scale, I thank you for that. And so you've got several assembly members here that, as we meet on the 15th, I suspect we'll have a motion to resolve the issue of the conditional protest. And I would entertain from the Public Safety Committee a recommendation. I do use like more of a formal process where we could make a recommendation to the body on the 15th as to
I
what
recommend moving it forward.
lift the conditional protest. So, and that's a recommendation we'll make as a committee. And of course, we've got several assembly members here, so I think that's an added benefit that they're here today. And so we will report that to the body. And I just want to thank you again for taking it serious, and thank you for being here. And I know it costs money to hire a staffer that's not necessarily on payroll, but a pretty wise choice in the overall scheme of things.
Mr. Chairman, I did have, I would suggest if there's anybody that anticipates anything that hasn't come up here, I mean, obviously, people, assembly members that aren't here today can't process, but if there are other issues or questions or concerns that they get addressed, I mean, out of fairness, it'd be good to bring them up early.
Absolutely.
Rather than at the last minute.
And we'll be there, Mr. Chairman, on the 15th, just in case something comes up that you need to answer.
Very good.
Can I ask the chief a quick question?
Sure.
Back in the day when we had less gray hair, you were captain, and you were in charge of downtown, and there was a regular series of meetings. Is that going on now?
It's going on, but in a little different way. And in fact, some of our activities this summer were as a result of probably let me back up. We have 4 captains right now. We have one that's in charge of what we call the Crime Suppression Division, and that he oversees sort of the community policing stuff, the cap team and so forth. He's the one that's been going to meet with the bar owners monthly in a similar fashion to what I used to do years ago. Then we promoted another person to captain of patrol. What happened in the summer was captain of patrol was hearing from patrol officers that they were getting frustrated with drunkenness downtown. And so the patrol captain sort of launched a campaign with patrol, with the ABC investigators. They got prosecutors on board. I want to come back a little bit to the breathalyzer here in a minute. But he wasn't the one that had been talking to the bar owners. It was Captain Miller that was talking to the bar owners. And Miller hadn't been hearing from the cap team. They were doing other things. So I think the bar owners thought they were talking to, they were talking to a captain, and then this other captain went and launched something, and everybody took everybody by surprise. And so what we got of those 2 captains are now working together, and they're talking together with CHAR, and the different establishment owners. So we don't get one captain thinking he's seeing something, and a different captain either isn't seeing that or telling everybody everything's okay. So we're trying to deconflict that.
That's because it worked so well, 20 years ago, whenever.
And on my way out the door, I got to tell you, on the way down here today, my secretary says, "Oh, you might need this," and she handed me a year's worth of statistics for this establishment. Well, I barely reviewed it while I'm sitting here listening to you folks talk, and I don't want to drop bombshells. And I think the thing that we need to do, and I hope the captains are doing it, is the bar owners need to see these statistics early. I shouldn't walk into a meeting and just throw them on the table without an explanation. A lot of them might be stuff that the bar owners are cooperating with the police on. They're calling, you know, they're helping us, and it just looks like a tick mark against them. So that, you know, that kind of stuff, that's what those meetings are supposed to be about, is going through this information, figuring out, okay, which one of these are we concerned about, which one of these we hold against the bar, which one of these, no, this is on us. We were in there doing interviews on an unrelated case or whatever. So maybe I'll share these guys with you afterwards, but I am not wanting to. I think that meeting with the bar owners is the place where this kind of information should get shared rather than waiting to the tail end of this process and dumping it on the table. Regarding the breathalyzers, back then, what I was told was the prosecutor and the ABC guys and our folks, they're well aware of the difference between the drunkenness standard that you use for over-serving and the per se limit for driving a vehicle. Those cases are supposed to be made on observations of the different agents in the bars, and we made those cases independently. The breathalyzers were just done after the fact to double check our observations, and I think I don't know about run runners, I'm not even thinking about any particular establishment, but in general, what I was told was those VAs were coming in fairly high. They weren't 08s and tended to support the notion that the behavior that was seen there was drunkenness.
Yeah, well, what we got was an NOV from the ABC board that said this was the blood alcohol. And that's what we got. We didn't see anything about observations, but that's an interesting thing. One of the reasons that the change was made in Title II, that 5-6 years ago, was precisely what you said. You'd get these raw statistics that would have 40 or 50 items listed, and you couldn't make a judgment or a call as to whether it was something that the bar was doing wrong, they were there for another reason, or they'd called the police because they had a drunken person who was trying to get in and they'd arrested him, and it became very problematic. So the solution that Alan and I worked up was, let's have the chief review it first, and then he can make a judgment about whether or not there should be some action. So that's, and it's a permissive thing, it's not a required thing, to allow the chief to bring it to you guys if you have determined there's a problem. The idea being that you'd get that civic, the first level of separating the wheat from the chaff is the idea. And I don't know what's happened since I've left, but that was the theory behind the way we wrote that section.
Well, a lot of the statistics will generate if the officers go in, and like a lot of these are welfare checks, so that's the officer just deciding he's going to go in and wander around. So he logs out in the air, that makes a tick mark, and you may go in, may find nothing, may leave, may say this is great, but it's still on the surface is a call at run runners. You can have, if a lot of these establishments are landmarks, people might make a traffic stop and they'll say in front of Chilkoot Charlie's, you know, rather than saying at Spenard and Fireweed or something. Well, that goes against Chilkoot Charlie's if you're not careful. So you got to strip all that out, and you really have to look at every call individually to make sense out of it.
To be fair, first of all, none of the conditional protests on any of them were issued or based on that actual process. So just
understand that.
But that brings me to another question. There were two questions to follow up. One is TAM's card. It says in your notes, Mr. Coffey, is that all employees are TAM trained required. Is everybody current?
Yes, sir.
That was the first question I asked him.
Okay.
Here's a copy of every single employee and every single TAM.
And this is what we keep at our
Yeah.
front door as soon as APD walks in. We have every employee's TAM, ID, everything.
This really helps APD because they come in every weekend, if not every other weekend, on a regular walkthrough. We all get along fine. We walk through. They suggest certain things. Hey, you might want to keep an eye on that lady or this. We have a great relationship there, but they look at this every time they come in. And this is every other weekend, every weekend. We've had this since we've opened. I've always had a current TAM book of everybody. When we hire people, we make 2 copies. One goes in their file, one goes in the TAM book file, right by my front of my bar, available for APD or ABC board anytime they enter our establishment.
And we have a designated employee who does monthly checks of expiration dates and, whether or not it's coming up or they do need a renewal. And if they do not have it renewed the morning of their shift that it's expired, they do not work
They're off
until
the
it
schedule.
is
I'm
provided.
not sure, does the clerk's office have you guys on this one here? Is it possible to make sure you connect up with Amanda or Jack, whoever's available for the clerk's office? They have a process administratively how they want to make sure they're in compliance.
Let us know where.
Very simple on, if you demonstrate TAM's compliance, that lifts the conditional protest without any further action on it. Simply, that was written that way. So if you could, that was one NOA on TAM's, and so Amanda.
We have copies for you, you could add.
That's probably the best way.
That's probably the easiest, simplest way. And then, I believe that was the last issue that was covered was TAM's, and I think that was a question.
Now, can I ask, I haven't met you formally, and if I have, I don't think so, but are you guys good with us calling on, right now, we call 5 or 8 times a weekend with you guys to arrest minors. The problem is if we don't arrest them, we take an ID, which isn't them anyway, they'll go get another fake ID and they'll try to enter next weekend.
No, we'd like
So-
as many calls as you can
So,
send.
so I mean, we're arresting 5 to 8 minors a weekend, and you guys live at our establishment on Friday and Saturday nights pretty much because most of them are arrests with minors and problems in our establishment trying to clean our place up from, especially minors. Because what happens is one minor gets in, they text, hey, to all their minor friends, all of a sudden you got a mass text out of, hey, you can get in there. So, I had to fire one security guy was actually letting people in the back door earlier in the summer. I fired him on the spot. We've been working with APD, and that was the meeting we had with Mr. Holman ever since. But I know you guys are really busy on Friday and Saturday nights, but I still would rather arrest them and make an example of these minors trying to get in the establishment.
And I think we should do that. And those things, that's why it's important that we sit down and go through this kind of stuff together, because a lot of this may be reflective of your good work, but you can't tell until you pull the individual.
Yeah, because it looks bad when you look at, okay, we got 348 calls. Well, you're getting 16 calls a weekend alone on minors, from us. So that's where I wanted to talk to you
So
about.
those are
maybe after
minors
the meeting.
because you guys are catching them, or those
Yes.
are minors because we were in there catching what you weren't? See, you won't know that till you pull them up. So-
And frankly, those are the kind of things.
That's
the
what we need
process
to
that I'm
have a
speaking to
meeting
is not
separately,
quite-
HR, yeah.
There's an open jaw here, so we're working on that.
Cool.
And I hate to put this off, but we've been 40 minutes on it, what we thought would be 20 or 30. But we thank you for being here.
Well,
Any
thank
further
you.
questions, come.
This is a far better process than trying to do this at a podium when you've got 50 items on your agenda.
Absolutely.
Thank you very
Mr.
much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Okay, rather quickly, I know we've got, we're short-staffed, and I know that we notified DHS. Was there anything on DHS that we need to be aware of going on in February, or issues that you have, that you might need from the assembly help assistance?
I would just mention 2 things where DHHS is concerned. The first one is the continued work with homelessness and the fact that we've been in a good partnership with United Way, and if any of you are interested in United Way, is having a walk for warmth on February 19th. So, to raise money, so they've been doing a lot of good work in really working with homelessness. The second thing that I would just mention for your information is that, and you may know, many of you probably do know, that we're doing a transition of the remaining parts of the Division of Neighborhood that will remain after weatherization transitions, and those folks will be coming to DHHS. There's been a lot of interest in the community about that, and what I just want to make sure that you know is that the mayor's placed a large priority on homelessness, as you know, and DHHS has been the lead agency. And while people may question, well, it could be in planning or it could be here, the real reason for us making that decision and the mayor making that decision and asking me to work with that department is because with the CSP returning to DHHS and other with Division of Neighborhood additional staff, we believe then that we'll be able to really focus our efforts on homelessness in the community and have as many resources under one umbrella so we can be as creative as possible. So there are conversations going on about that in the community. People have varying opinions. What I think is a very strategic move on the part of the mayor, and I'm privileged to be the department chair that's working on that consolidation for him. But I just think that would be something you may hear about in the community, but just so you have FYI. And I've been meeting with the Han Commission and just trying to make sure that people understand that there's not a great conspiracy going on, rather a kind of aligning of efforts.
Several questions referenced the former Red Roof and where we may be at. I know it went through the zoning, planning and zoning, and got all the approvals through. Do you know what the status is?
I do know the status of that, and I should say it by way of disclosure that I'm also a board member of Rural Cap, the municipal representative. The Red Roof Inn is proceeding. It's called Carluck Manor now. It is working on the additional planning and zoning requirements. You will see notice for the March Han Commission meeting that was looking at $145,000 contribution to the Red Roof Inn from the municipality with our home funds. And that's something that has been vetted through and which is supported by the administration. So we're looking forward to doing that. At the same time, we are looking at other types of solutions so that it's a continuum of solutions for our homeless who are at the greatest risk in public safety, and continuing our partnership with United Way and Catholic Social Services for families and others. But those would be the only things I would report.
Ms. Drummond?
Thank you, Diane, for being here. I've been invited to a town hall meeting on homelessness by KTUU at
Yes. That was on my
Beans
list.
Cafe on the 16th.
That was on my list to remember to mention. There is going to be a live town hall meeting on homelessness. There'll be 8 panelists. I'll be among the 8. We'll also have people like Trevor Storrs, Jeff Jesse, I think Susan Bomolowski. I can't remember everybody else, but we are pleased to see some effort, and we would encourage you and your friends to participate in the audience. It'll be a live audience.
Birch, Mr. Hall, anything?
Served up 207 meals this morning at the Beans Cafe, and but they're all cereal. There's no, they actually are looking for the hot food, but they're having a fire department or a semi-annual inspection of the fire system, and so they couldn't cook. But good work and good program.
Thank you very much. Mr. Spillers, anything from OEM?
Nothing,
I know you had an emergency watch, some neighborhood meeting training, did your training with Ms. Dawn?
that went well. We're getting a lot of support, a lot of interest in the whole emergency watch program. So we had some more upcoming workshops for the leadership training. Good participation or good interest.
Quick question. How are we doing? We got full alignment on all the radios and the comm equipment now?
Do we have alignment? We're working,
Yeah.
we're forging ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There's still infrastructure they're putting in, antennas.
Well, I know we funded, I just was curious,
We're scheduling training right now, and
Okay.
I think we're gonna try to throw the switch in, what, May, maybe? June?
I think it's a little later than that, but you're right. The tracking, in terms of training the folks on the A-Warn system, outfitting them, there's still some work left to do.
That's basically cross-jurisdictional and everything, right? As far as-
Well, yes, the radios are, I don't want to get too technical, the radios communicate on a set of frequencies that goes through a zone controller and communicates with the state, which are on a different set of frequencies. But yes, you can make them talk to each other. And we have to we have to issue the handsets to the officers, get them up to speed, because these are really high-tech pieces of equipment. They're much more complicated than the radios we carry today. And of course, we've got to rotate out the mobile units in the police cars. Many of those cars are already pre-wired, so it's just swapping out the control heads and radios in the back, but some of the older cars aren't pre-wired, so there's some work to be done
Been a
there.
long time coming.
It has been about
No, the fire department.
15 years that I've been
Yeah,
involved in it.
yeah. The fire department's already in process and done that, been through their training, issued out radios and things.
Cool. Thanks.
Good question. Chief, I'll talk to you offline. Basically, there's some, the auxiliary volunteer component, there's some portables that they're looking at a few, apparently there may be some in the warehouse or something like that, we'll talk about that. We're putting in a, I guess, call a big request for the community control side for legislative funding, we'll see if it gets, you never know if it happens through all the process.
Paul, just as a follow-up on the technology side, talking radios, I was following one of the trials recently, and there was some discussion about a GPS unit in a police car. Are all of our APD and AFD units, are they all GPS equipped?
I know that, from my past life, I know that there are, on the patrol cars that are marked, I know have a little disc, I think, the detectives notice one, or the emergency, I know they have the capability.
There's part of this question I would like to answer in public, and part of it I would prefer not to answer in public.
Okay.
But we do track, we do have, all the cars do have GPS that we can see and dispatch. There was a period of time, I think, when that system was down due to a problem with a router, not a router, but some piece of radio equipment in the stack. I think we're back up online with that.
I was just curious from the standpoint of deploying equipment during an emergency, knowing, what you've got, where it's at is a pretty critical component. I was just kind of curious as to where that, and I was actually reminded of it when I saw a story about the tracking the GPS unit on the APD.
There's more I would tell you offline about our capabilities that I just don't want to talk about.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Okay, well, then, since you're chief, you're here, and I don't see fire. Anybody from fire? Anyway, then, chief, if we're good, we're, one of the things that's struggling, toward the end of the year, 2010, there was some asset forfeiture funding that was, for lack of a better term, there was a switch on some, where it was be allocated some funding for preparation, funding for an academy in the fall of 2011. Is there any action item, action plan, anything in the pipe for, have we advertised yet, or do we have people in place to test, or are we background checking anybody?
Well, we're working on an assumption of an academy on October 10th. Unless somebody tells us otherwise, that's what we're aiming for right now. We are starting the process of taking applications. I think, as of this morning, what I'm told is we are shooting for February 21st as being the deadline, or the time when you can get online through NeoGov and pull down an APD application. There'll be a posting there, and you can apply. The posting will be open for a month. It'll close on March 21st, and we will see how many applications we get there. We're not planning to advertise in any big way right now, because we think we're not going to have to spend that money, because we think once the word gets out, it's going to get out big time, and we haven't had Academy in so long that there's probably, with the way the economy is, there's probably a whole bunch of people looking for work, and we may get more applications that we can deal with already, without really having to work too hard to get it. So we'll see how many applications we get in the 1 month window. Our plan then is, if for some reason that isn't enough, then we'll get started processing those. We'll pick another 1 month window, reopen it. Right now, we're working the paperwork through the process at various places in HR where you got to update our position descriptions, get through. There's steps along the way before we can open up those applications, but we're well on our way through that, and we hope to be up on the 21st. We're ordering the ammunition. In fact, the ammo order is going through. I haven't signed it yet, but it's on the captain's desk for Navy Steve's, so it'll go through this week. We don't anticipate any problems there. The Academy has put together a tentative schedule, so that's coming together. We haven't spent a whole bunch of money yet, but we're on the way. But we do have a timeline for sergeant promotions, which is not the same question you asked, but they're all kind of related. That trickles down to how many openings you can have. But we're shooting for a 28-person academy on the 10th of October. Now, what we don't know yet is how first quarter budget revisions are going to go. So our picture is not, it's congealing, but there's still fuzzy aspects of the picture. But For instance, what I can't tell you yet, since we haven't gone through first quarter, is, and partly what we don't know is what's going to happen with the parking election in April. But I'm going to be interested in knowing if that doesn't pass in April, I may be wanting to hire some people earlier than October and get them writing tickets downtown, make them apes again. Of course, we won't have to do that if the parking change does get made by the voters. So how all that plays out, we're still not sure about that yet.
Is there a differential in the academy training cost component based on prior experience or capabilities that are brought to a position by an applicant?
There could be. If we have the right number of applicants who are already state certified, or maybe have a certification from a different state that's valid, we can put together a Quickie Academy and kick them out the door earlier. And I'd like to maintain that flexibility. There are budget decisions to be made there, and this is what I don't know yet. And we're going to work through first quarter. I don't know the funding mechanism we're going to have. My understanding is that the open positions, the positions we have open right now are unfunded. They will refund them on October 10th. So they're there on the books, but there's no money behind them. All right. So what happens if we open these, take applications for a month, and there's 10 guys and gals that could be ready to go with a Quickie Academy? We could hire them now and get them on the street, fast track them. Will I be able to convince the mayor and the assembly and you guys to fund a few of those up front rather than wait till October and get them out on the street? Or do we want the salary savings and we're going to say, no, we're going to wait till October? So, those are discussions we haven't had yet. We don't know, if those people are going to surface, although I imagine there will be a few of them as well. And we'll have to see what we've got to work with and then adjust accordingly.
Okay, thank you.
Questions, comments? Any, Chief, just thank you again for the update on that. I really appreciate it. I know the administration, and Mr. Baker, I recognize your administration had said about this time, well, maybe about April or May of last year, they were forecasting a fall 2011 academy. I know that the books aren't closed yet, so to speak, but it looks like the end of year. Congratulations, by the way, coming in on the budget for 2010. But it looks like we'll have a fund balance, which would be from the surplus, and I think that, to me, I can't predict. A crystal ball's kind of foggy still, but I suspect you should be able to see some support unilaterally amongst both branches to make sure that this happens. We know that, again, fall academy, and you haven't had an academy since maybe the fall of 2008, and it takes some months to recruit, some months to train, and this is going to be a difficult. This is not one of those things where you just advertise today and 2 weeks from now you got 20, 30 cops ready to roll out on the street. So this is and I might add, though fire's not here, they've got some similar concerns, particularly
Mr. Chairman, I might be able to lighten December just a bit on that. We are actually on the street advertising fire, and it's been about 3 weeks now. As of last week, we had already had 200 applicants.
For fire?
For fire. And they were testing, I think we reserved the Egan Center. They're anticipating perhaps there might be up to 700 applicants. So there's obviously a real interest. The former Chief Schrage had a lot of folks from Fairbanks that heard about the openings in Anchorage, and so yes, it went on the street, and immediately we had a lot of applicants, and it was last week was about 200, so it's looking really good.
Is that just word of mouth then, or is it?
No, it's up on the net.
Okay, yeah.
They put it out through their sources. I don't know exactly how they did it. ER was taking the applicants.
So maybe, Mr. Baker, you can maybe enter, since Chief wasn't able to make it today, Medic 7. I know we bonded, was it last year? They got the rig.
Yeah,
the rig's in place here, isn't it? Is it?
I think it's been ordered.
Been ordered.
Yes. Yes, it's in the.
I know that was one of those. I think he was looking at trying to.
Well, that's the reason. I think the chief's looking at some lateral hires. He's hoping that and like Chief Muse said, that if he gets people that have good fire training experience in other departments, they can do a shortened educational process and get folks moving.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
How many positions are you looking to fill in the fire department?
You know, I don't know exactly what the number is, but he has some vacancies. And so that's why I think in the budget that he was looking at, I believe it was 18. I think that may have been the number, but for the record, don't hold me to that. But I think that may have been the number that he was looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Hi, Mr. Baker. So is that part of the fire grant that we got?
Safer.
The funding, the SAFER, yeah.
Well, that has not been confirmed yet.
Oh, it hasn't been?
We're
Okay.
waiting.
Still waiting.
We're waiting any day.
Gotcha.
We were approved preliminarily.
Okay.
And
That's a good start.
That was a good start. We cleared all the hurdles, and this was like a week ago, and they told us any day, and every day we get up and hope that maybe
I feel your pain.
today might be the day. But
Yeah.
so if that comes through, obviously that really helps us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I gotta go.
Thank you. Well, we're getting pretty close. Just real quick, thank you, Mr. Baker. Ms. Burge, if you don't mind, we'll read into committee's sake for approval or recommendation of the body a resolution for the Public Safety Committee. Whereas conditional protest on Run Runners renewal was approved by the Assembly on January 18, 2011, and whereas Run Runners was invited to attend the Assembly Public Safety Committee meeting on February 9, 2011, and whereas Run Runners' presentation to the Public Safety Committee was detailed, informative, and met the concerns of the Public Safety Committee. Now, therefore, the Public Safety Committee recommends lifting the conditional protest on confirmation from the clerk's office that TAM training certification is complete. Does that sound
Very good.
okay? So I'll just confirm with Secretary and Heather. So that'll likely come before the body for the meeting on the 15th. And again, any other comments? Getting actually close to the 1 o'clock hour, so any concerns? Members of the public, I suppose.
We're here with Anchorage Charter to talk to you about the cap issue.
Sure. Briefly, yes.
My name's Duran Powell. I'm with Anchorage Charter. And Bob's here. We had met with the Transportation Committee earlier, a couple months ago, about a change in city code allowing the cab companies to take an existing cab license and basically double that on Fridays and Saturday nights and adult holidays. The problem we're dealing with on adult holidays like Halloween and New Year's Eve and St. Patrick's Day, they're not recognized as state holidays. And frequently, I shouldn't say frequently, all the time, if you try and go out on a New Year's Eve right now in Anchorage, try and get a cab, they don't exist in effect. They're out there working as hard as they can. There's a limited amount of cars, and the demand is so great that you'll wait upwards of 2 hours on a New Year's Eve for a cab if you can get one to show up. So we find a lot of people drinking and driving because they can't get home. It's wintertime, it's Anchorage, Alaska. Sometimes we have minus 10, minus 20 degree weather on a Friday or a Saturday night, and you have people standing outside in the freezing cold waiting for a cab to show up, and the cabs they're at their maximum capacity. In the restaurant and bar business, we're allowed to get a catering license if we're going to do a wedding off premise, where we take our existing license and we go to the chief or police department, they sign out a permit, we take it to the ABC board, and it allows us to extend our premises to the wedding so that we can use the same license for another venue for a special event. And we want to look at doing a similar option, and it would involve the cab companies taking existing licenses. We're not issuing new licenses. We're not expanding the pool of licenses. We don't have to get in a public policy debate with the cab companies about watering down the value of licenses that are out there. We take the existing license, they take their backup cars, and they fill that need, that gap out there. There are people that need cabs that are willing to pay for cabs, but they're not available. There's maxed out the capacity of the licenses on Friday and Saturday night and the adult holidays.
Mr. Russell, thank you for, I did get your fax, I did get your email, so thank you for I understand you've done a lot of research on this and have a lot of background with it. I just wanted you to know, and of course we're coming to the end of our meeting schedule for the day, but we did have a meeting, last Public Safety Committee last month. The Transportation Commission Public Safety Advisory Commission and the Public Safety Committee met jointly to address this topic, understood that CHAR actually approached the Transportation Commission in December, which missed that portion. There's a to-do, just the information, there's actually an action item that's due the second Wednesday at noon, second Wednesday in March, which is March 9th. And they will be coming back with some recommendations, and would really extend the invitation that if CHAR, and particularly Mr. Hanson, if you would like to at least put on and be able to be available, be here to do a presentation, much like what you did today. This is good information for us to have, because this is some of the things, for instance, the strategy that you just proposed, weekends, evenings, holidays, doubling up on a temporary basis, which doesn't affect the, I guess you say, the permanent full rent, year-round permits. These are the kind of things that I'm looking for, recommendations that we could make. And if it's a code change, then we need to know about it and be able to hash and rehash and be able to have a hearing on it and go from there. So this is something that I think.
Mr. Chair, did you distribute, or the package that came to you, did that get sent around?
Not yet. Did you send us all of them that were just ransom, or?
I would like to have a copy of that, because I'm one who struggle with the problem with the shortage of cabs, and deregulation seems to be, at least on the face of it, the most direct way of dealing with that. But I think that came up when there was a highly contested election over that in the last few years. But if you've got some information that I work around or specifics that would basically free that up, I for one would sure like to have a copy of that, to at least to consider it, so
Sure.
ahead of time.
Sure, I'm sure we can go to Sylvia Delanides at Anchorage CHAR and see if Sylvia can pass that back to.
Yeah, we can get that to the clerk's office, and we can get it distributed to all the assembly members. That would be great and helpful. I know that you had approached it from the Public Safety Committee, and again, we had it scheduled for the meeting for March, so we were going to get that to the Public Safety Committee. But you're right, that's a good approach to it. We did meet, again, last month with an idea of getting some strategies and kind of giving us an update of what their recommendations might be, and part of it could be code change, certainly to allow for this. And by the way, Jenkins CHAR, not to speak for the company, but the agency, they have this off-the-road program, in which the participating licensees actually call two cabs, one to drive the patron home, who shouldn't be driving, the other one to drive the patron's car home. That's where the impact really affects the ability to have other cabs available.
Mr. Chairman, come on. Mr. Chairman, I'm Jim Brennan. I won't take much of your time. I'm an attorney for the Anchorage Tax Cab Permit Owners Association, otherwise known as ATPOA. And our concern here so far is that we have not been invited into this process, and we were therefore not at your last meeting. Strikes us as strange that if we're talking about possible change of ordinance and regulations affecting the tax cab industry when we were not privy to this, and we would have been glad to participate. We had participated with Anchorage CHAR previously. They had organized a number of meetings. My client had me attend a number of them, and we had, the Anchorage tax cab industry, as most of you know, is not just all a monolithic thing. There are different entities: dispatch owners, permit owners, licensed chauffeurs, and everybody is going to have to play a role to make something like this work. Up to now, we thought the focus was on closing times of bars in the middle of the night, and the sudden demand for a number of taxi cabs at once. And but if we're also talking about holidays, that's something that it's. I guess the only point I'd make now is it's not an easy cat to skin. I mean, there are a number of things that need to be taken into account. ATPOA would be glad to participate, and we'd like to get.
Could I get your card before we
Sure.
leave, so they can get an email to you?
Sure.
Certainly, this large of an issue, as you know, went to the ballot before, and I can't remember, a couple of years back, that memory recalls.
2 years ago.
And I know it's a contentious issue, and certainly it I believe needs to have a bigger, probably more public hearing.
Well, what went to the ballot was a question of deregulation, which failed by a 65 to 35% vote. I understand that that's what's under consideration here is possible tweaking of the permit laws and the other laws so as to allow us to address specific issues. And as I say, that's something we're willing to work with all stakeholders in, and this committee. We just would like to be.
Certainly need to be invited and certainly welcome to it.
Yeah.
A couple of issues.
What's the issue about the higher rates on certain days or holidays or something?
Well, there are certain holidays that are recognized by the state. We're allowed to stay open, and we accommodate the crowds, like New Year's Eve. There's other holidays that aren't recognized by the state that have equally large crowds. Halloween, for example, is not a holiday, a recognized holiday, but it's a huge adult holiday for people to go out nightclubbing and go out.
And your suggestion is that somehow or another the existing permit holders be allowed to have additional.
We want to make it economically viable for the cab companies to put more cars in the streets, not only just on Friday and Saturday night, but on those nights when the demand is so large, such as St. Pat's and Halloween.
Well, that's good. I mean, it seems like you get the right people here to have that discussion. Chief?
Somebody said something to me once, and I don't remember now who it was, but they suggested that, at least in the bar break scenario, that maybe it's not a shortage of cabs. Maybe it's that people don't want to come out for just an hour's worth of work. They get in 1 or 2 trips, and then the bar break's over and everything dies. And so there probably are enough cabs, but they don't want to come out. I don't know if that's true or not. And it sounds like it wouldn't apply a holiday deal where people are out all the time, huge crowds. There'd probably be business all over the evening. But I wonder, for just the bar break scenario, if it would work. I guess there's no reason not to try it, but does anybody do you have a better feel for?
No, but you raised a very good question there. And among the ideas I've heard just scattered around is the idea of authorizing a higher charge to the customer at that particular hour, that might be incentive to get all the cabs on the street.
I mean, cabs aren't my business. I really don't know. I heard that and I thought, well, I don't know. I just thought I don't know if it's really the case or not.
I think you got a legitimate question.
Yeah, you had a quick comment, and we're getting.
Yeah, just quick. I think, I'm not positive, but I think there was like miscommunication, and Sylvia was very, very sick, and so I don't think Char was represented here at January public safety hearing either regarding this, which we've always been very, very involved in, like you said, set up meetings and stuff. And just to comment on what the chief said, that was part of our reasoning, I think, when we were discussing the staggering the bar closing hours. That was one of the good reasons, is that, you know, if they have this very short time frame, everybody comes out and it's like they might get 1 fare, 2 fares, and then they're done. And there's just people standing around out in the cold all the time. Where if it was staggered, you know, we wouldn't have that issue. But then that got into another whole can of worms. So that was it.
Let me quick comment. My name is Bob Ransom. I run the chauffeur training class for the municipality, and I've been in the industry since '79. And one of the issues also is the dispatch companies are minimally regulated by Title 11, and there's still only 2 people taking calls at bar break. So there's only a certain volume of calls that can go through. So that's an issue also, like Mr. Brenner said, there's plenty of aspects that have to be addressed.
Okay.
Can I make one comment before we move? Sure. Real quick. I'm Susie Taylor, also from an owner and operator. And the other thing that I want to bring to attention, just a note right now, is that the need for taxi stands downtown is also a major problem. I know that Coots gets a lot better service than some of the other bars because they have adequate parking for taxis to stay stationed and waiting for bar break. And downtown, it's much more difficult for taxis to be stationed for bars when they break. There's nowhere to park, they get ticketed, all these situations. I mean, you got a big, huge building across the street that holds thousands of people, and there's not a single taxi cab stand for that whole building. So that's another aggression that can be, you know, part of the solution. I mean, there's no real answer to any of this. It's just another piece of the pie to help with the solution.
We've been having ongoing meetings with traffic engineering and parking authority last year also. They did add a couple, but not very many.
Very good points all. So again, remember, second Wednesday in March, which I believe is, looks like the 9th, and at noon, it's likely in the same location. We'll be addressing fairly largely, Chief, just so you know, for your scheduling, the issues on taxis and the challenges and some strategies and potential. Some good dialogue, and again, likely would even spill into even further discussion, maybe even public hearing. So for Unless there's some other comments or questions, I'd like to go off record here at like 1:11 PM.